All right. So I did forget one important thing, and you guys might be wondering about that. If you see here, inside of our onCreate, we do extract data out of the saved state. However, I never wrote the code that actually pushes the data, the request into the bundle. So let's go ahead and do that. Right after the onCreate method, I'm going to go ahead and hit Alt Insert, overriding members, and I'm going to do onSave instance state. And then I'm going to go ahead and hit Enter. So now we have our onSaved instance state method. And inside of this, I'm going to say outstate dot put parseable, and then I'm going to pass in state underscore request and then request. So this is the code that's going to save it when the activity gets destroyed or backgrounded or anything like that. And then the request will then be retrieved again up here in this code. Okay, so now that we've done that, let's go ahead and implement our menu, because I want the send button to appear on our action menu. So I'm going to scroll all the way down to the bottom and kind of keep all this code relatively grouped together. The first thing I need to do is create an options menu. So I'm going to hit Alt Insert, overriding members, and then I'm going to say create options menu or on create options menu. And I'm going to default to returning true, and then I'm going to say get menu inflator dot inflate, passing in r dot menu dot activity send message, and menu for the second parameter. Then for this menu, I'm going to Alt Enter and then select create menu resource, enter, and then enter one more time. Now in our menu here, I'm only going to have one item, and that'll be our send. So I'm going to go ahead and say item. And I'm going to give an ID of activity send message menu send. And I'm going to give him a title of send exclamation point to make it more exciting. And then I'm going to do app show as action equals always. And I think I'll just leave it there. And then for this, I'll of course hit Alt Enter to import that XMLNS. All right, so now that we have our options menu, come back here. Let's go ahead and handle the case when the user clicks on the options menu. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Alt Insert, overriding members on options items selected. And for this, I'm going to default to returning false, but I'm going to say int id equals item get id if id is r.id dot send menu send. Then I'm going to say send message, and I'm going to say return true to indicate that we did actually implement or did actually handle this. Then for this send message, I'm going to put my keyboard cursor on the red, hit Alt Enter, and say create method send message, which is down here at the bottom. So our send message, the first thing I want to do is provide some basic client-side validation. I'm going to say if, well, I guess first, what I can go ahead and do is I can say string message equals message edit text get text dot get to string. So I'll go ahead and convert the char sequence into a string. I'll say if message dot length is, let's say, smaller than 2 characters. I'm going to go ahead and say message edit text dot set error, and we'll set the error to something like please enter a message. Please enter a longer message, something like that. And we'll say return. And then I'll go ahead and say message edit text dot set error null. So if the if we got this far, reset our error to basically null. Then I'm going to make sure that we've selected a recipient. So I'm going to say if request dot get recipient equals null. Then I'm going to say toast dot make toast, this for the context, and I'll say please select a recipient with a toast dot length short, and we'll do dot show at the end, of course. And then I'm going to say select contact, or select recipient, and then I'm going to say return. So what happens is if they try to send the message but they haven't selected a recipient, we show them a toast asking them to select a recipient, and then we show them the select recipient dialog. Then what I'm going to do is say progress frame dot set visibility view visible, and we can animate this in. So I'm going to say set alpha to 0, and then I'm going to say progress frame dot animate alpha 1, set duration to 250, and start. And the final thing I want to do is post my request. So I'm going to say bus.post request. So this entire time that we've been putting together this object that represents our API call, we now finally publish it on the bus so that it can go out and do whatever it needs to do, whether that being returning a fake response or returning a, or actually hitting a live web service. Now the last thing I need to do is I'm going to subscribe to public void on message sent, which will be messages.sendMessageResponse response. And then here, I'm going to say, if not, response did succeed, then response show error toast, and this for the context. Then I'm going to say message edit text.set error response.get property error message. So we'll set our error to our to whatever was returned from the server. And then I'm going to go ahead and let's see here. Let's fade the progress bar back out. So I'm going to say progress frame dot animate dot alpha 0 set duration. Let's do 200 milliseconds this time, and then we'll do with end action new runnable progress frame set visibility view gone. And then we'll say start. And finally, we'll say return. So we just put together a quick animation. We animate its alpha down to 0, and then when the animation is done, we set its visibility to gone, so that you no longer it no longer intercepts clicks. And then if we get all the way to the end, we're going to say set result to result OK, and we're going to finish. And that's it. So basically, once we finish, we'll be returned to whatever activity prompted us to set up this or send a message in the first place, which means it'll be sent back to our new message activity right here. And then if you recall, our new message activity, when it receives a response that our send message activity is finished, it then finishes itself, and then it'll be sent all the way back to whatever top level activity originally started it. So here's the code in send message activity right here. So here's our on message sent method, and I'm going to scroll up here. Here's our send message method, and then scroll up here, and here's our on create options menu and on options item selected methods. Now if we hit play, we should be able to test out some of that code. We should be able to test out some of the error conditions that we have. So let me go ahead and, while that's gradling, I'm going to go ahead and open up my... Oh, stop that madness. I'm going to jump in here, and I'm going to select in-memory messages to remind myself what my error conditions were. So one was a message of error, and the other one was message of error dash message. All right, so if I hit send, watch what happens. Please enter a longer message. So let's enter a longer message. Let's enter error. And now let's hit send again. And check that out. It says, please select a recipient, and our select contact window appears with all of our contacts. So now I can select one of those, and it says to contact 7. Now if I hit send, ooh, we get an error. I'm not seeing it in Logcat. Let's try that one more time with Logcat open. I'm really not a big fan of how finicky Logcat could be. I suppose it's better than nothing, but sometimes it irritates me. Okay, so I'm gonna just off screen right now. I'm basically just doing the same thing that I did before, just to see if I can catch whatever error happened on Logcat. I'm sure it's something stupid. Okay, so we get a null. Oh, we never set our message to anything. Derp. Okay, so let's come back here to our send message activity, and on our send message method, right here, before we send the request, I have to do request.setMessage message. All right, let's hit play. I could do some additional validation on the code, but since it's a mock service layer that's only used for testing purposes, I'm not too keen on really caring about that at all. All right, let's check our error condition here. So let's select our contact. Hit send. We get our nice little animation, and then we get something bad happen. Sweet. So now let's say error-message. See if that works. So let's hit send. We get our nice little animation guy, and then we get our invalid message. Now, let's go ahead and say stuff and things, and hit send. What should happen now is it closes. Now, of course, the entire application closes, but that's because we started the activity right on the send message activity. So with pretty much all of that stuff down, let's go ahead and I'm going to launch the app. I'm just going to come up here in my launch menu, select app, and then let's go ahead and send a real message. While that's all, well, that's figuring itself out, I'm going to jump in here and enable my dummy webcam. And then I'm going to come here, let's select our contacts. And then for our contacts, let's go ahead and hit reply. And then when we hit reply, we should get our new message activity. Which we get an error establishing camera. That's interesting. Let's see why that might happen there. Anyway, let's just try our front-facing camera first. So there's our front-facing camera. Hit take a picture. We see our front-facing camera down there. We type in a message. Notice how to contact 1 is pre-selected. We hit send. And we get sent back all the way to contact 1. And we can close out of that. And we have our contacts. So yeah, let's go ahead and figure out real quick about that back-facing camera. So I'm going to right-click New Message Activity, select Run New Message Activity. Hit OK there. It kind of sits there and, it freezes. Something on the main thread is causing that to freeze. That's interesting. Alright, it seems that just a quick restart of the virtual machine fixed it. I know it's a little finicky, the Genymotion camera emulator is. I really highly recommend, if you're going to do camera stuff, when you're working specifically on camera stuff, using a physical device is a lot better. And at least it wasn't my experience, having a physical device on handy, which I assume most of you guys do. But anyway, I was looking at the code base just a little bit, rereading some of the stuff, and I did actually discover a potential bug. See, if I scroll down here in my new message activity all the way to my onPause method, you'll notice that down here on the onPause, I release the camera. And I say camera preview dot set camera null and null. But if I come down here to my camera preview class and I look at my set camera method, I assume that it's not null. So I want to go ahead and right here on this line of code, right before we set camera equals camera and camera info equals camera info, I'm going to say if camera is null, then return. But anyway, so let's go ahead and I'll just start the app up real fast, and I'll show you guys the back camera working. Because if it suddenly doesn't start to work, I'm going to be very frustrated. But I'm pretty sure it was just something weird that happened with the device. Not entirely sure what's going on with that. I really should have made those delays a little bit less. See, now our back camera is working, so I can say take a picture. Notice how contact 1 is selected. Type in a message, hit send. We get our nice little progress bar, and it's done. So now we see contact 1. One interesting thing we could do, we could, since this shows our sent and received messages, we could certainly have this contact 1 refresh itself whenever it gets back from sending a new message. So I guess I can go ahead and do that real quick. Just a nice little UI thing so that your sent message appears on your contact list after you're done. So I'm going to come down here to my contact activity. And I'm going to scroll all the way down here. I don't believe we have an onActivity request yet. So basically what I'm going to do, here at the top, I'm going to write a private static final int request send message equals 1. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll down to where we send our message on our on options item selected. And instead of saying start activity, I'm going to say start activity for result. And then I'm going to pass in request send message as the request code. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll down all the way here to the bottom, and I'm going to hit Alt Insert, and I'm going to do override member, and I'm going to say on activity result and hit enter. I'm going to say if request code equals request send message and result code equals result OK, then I can go ahead and What I'm going to do is I am going to go ahead and show my progress. Let's see. I think I'm going to re-show my progress bar. And then I'm going to send my search message request. So what's my progress frame called again? I totally forgot. I'm an awful person, I know. Progress frame. Because it's always been called progress frame. What am I thinking? Progress frame, set visibility, view visible. And then I'm going to say bus.post new messages.search message request, passing in our details, our user details.getID for the ID, and then true and true. So a nice just little thing that will make it so it'll re-request our new messages, refresh that for us. But anyway, yeah, that's really about it. Now that when I post this, it's going to come back here onto my on messages received when the response comes in. And that'll be that. All right, guys. Well, we're down to one new activity and one finishing our last other activity. So basically, all we need to do now, for our UI anyway, is I do need to come here into my inbox and actually write the inbox. And that's going to require us to put together a recycler view with multiple view types, which will be interesting. Then what I'm going to do is we need an actual activity to display a message. That's the one. That's basically the thing that this whole application is for. That's the last thing we're going to implement, such as typically how programming goes. And yeah, so once we get those two activities done, our UI will pretty much be finished up. And then the last thing we need to do, of course, is hook ourselves up to a real service instead of our dummy in-memory service. Anyway, I guess we'll see you guys in the next video.